Alex Gaetz is a heavy-duty truck and transport, is it technician, Alex? Is that the right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Technician, mechanic, but either one.
So welcome, Alex. I'm going to start you off by just asking a little bit about what that is. What is a heavy-duty truck and transport technician?
So everything that falls under heavy-duty truck and transport would be tractor trailers, dump trucks, buses, any vehicle over 4,500 kilograms, everything with air brakes. So all the big vehicles you see rolling down the road, that's me. The flip side of this trade is just heavy-duty maintenance, and that would be like excavators and off-road equipment. So this covers the on-road portion of the trade.
Okay, that's great. How did you choose this career? Like, how did you get interested in this? Was this something when you were sitting in a classroom in grade 9 to grade 10, you went, this is what I want to do?
Well, actually, I didn't know it at the time, but in high school, I took an automotive service and repair course. It was a grade 11 and a grade 12 course that I took. I really liked it. That kind of kickstarted me towards mechanics. Led me into my first job into working in garages and then fixing up cars at the time. It was later that I got into the heavy duty side, but it was a high school course that got me kind of more interested in it.
That's great. Brett, do you have a question for Alex?
Yes, of course. You mentioned that it was a high school course that started your interest in this. What was the follow-up education that you took afterwards to get certified to be able to do the job in this role?
So afterwards, it was 2 courses in high school. I had a little bit of a break between high school and getting into the trade. I moved away from it, but it was getting into the apprenticeship afterwards. This trade offers a 2-year core program as well, so that's an option for anyone that's interested. If they're in a high school course and want to lead right into it, NSCC offers a really good program. It's 2 semesters that you stay in school the whole time, and then you come out a little bit further ahead in your apprenticeship than just starting from square one.
I think that's really attractive to some students, is that you get out there right away and you can start your education skills training. Can you talk about, is there any other applied skills training that you've done? So Charlie mentioned like Red Seal or something like that. Is there anything in addition that you have done?
Yeah, so I'm during the apprenticeship, NSCC offers other courses. I took a refrigeration course so that I can work on the AC portion of truck and transport vehicles. This is called the Green Card, but it's the same course that you would take doing HVAC. It's all the same. It's all the same stuff that's in there. So you're doing the same course. Later on, after completing my Red Seal, there's so much training through manufacturers and OEMs, dealerships. I've gone on Cummins engine training, Allison transmission training. I worked in the oil field for a number of years in this trade. So I've gone on some specific training for oil field specific vehicles. That was a really cool thing to get to work on. Whatever avenue, there's different avenues in this trade too. Like there's the trailer portion of it. There is the engine portion of it. There's a whole new lane opening up for electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles. That is like, this is a really cool time to get into this trade because it's all changing. So that'll be training that's going to open up. It's going to open a lot of doors for people that are like young people getting into this trade. But to answer your question, I've gone on engine specific training, trailer specific training, transmissions. There is emissions based stuff to keep air clean. That's heavily endorsed in the industry, which now is shifting to the electric side to clean it up even more. But there's a lot of additional training out there.
That's really interesting, Alex. Actually, we had a French event for the French schools last week for World of Choices, and there was a automotive technician who spoke, and they said that it's almost daily how quickly things are changing, and that the requirement to just continually learn and keep up with the trends, like you said, more energy efficient or electric automotive, I guess, engines and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about that, how that, and because you see it every day with Halifax Transit, you know, you see the hybrid buses and we'll probably soon be at full electric buses. I don't know, but can you speak a little to that?
Absolutely. We're making a shift to be closer to net zero on our emissions and everything. Like, a lot of places are, but we're still primarily diesel-based engines, but we are moving to closer to an electric fleet, and then possibly hydrogen. We're looking at that as well. Hydrogen's a really cool option, because if you build what you need to build, you can create your own fuel. It's really cool. We just ordered our electric buses. We were the largest initial order of Nova electric buses in the country, so we're making a really big shift to electric. It may not be all electric fleet. We're looking at kind of every option, like hydrogen, natural gas, which has been around for a while. Hydrogen's been around for a while too, but it just hasn't been used. The idea is to get away from diesel altogether. A lot of places are doing that. And a lot of, even on the automotive side, there's a lot of car manufacturers that are moving heavily electric as well.
That's
it's
right.
really exciting to see just such a changing role and changing field that you're in. You talked a lot about the different types of training and like what are some of these skills that are important for not just your trade but also like transferable to other trades that you've learned over the years?
Like Charlie touched on, like you're learning that you're doing now that you think is, when am I going to use this? You are. You really are. And sometimes you realize it a little later and it feels like it's too late because you have to relearn a lot of stuff. When you're younger, it's easier to kind of take all that stuff in. So when you're in school, like math, like Charlie said, critical thinking is a big one. So that's through every course. You're given problems that you need to solve. You're given courses or projects that you need to finish, tests. That's all going to help you out in any trade when you get down the road. In mechanics, we're fixing broken stuff. So it's when it breaks, we have to figure out why it's broken, how to fix it. In electrical, you're doing the same thing, but sometimes you're just setting it up. You're putting the initial install. So you're figuring out what components need what and how to wire it in. In carpentry, you're doing the same thing. You're building it and you're measuring everything out. So when you're in high school, the stuff that you're learning now and the kind of getting you to think in a certain way and problem solve, that's going to help you out through every trade and outside of school too, your whole life.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. And so I imagine if you could talk a little bit about the day-to-day, like what do you actually do? So I imagine, you know, I see a bus pulled over, it's dead on the road, somehow it gets to you, and then how do you even begin when you talk about problem solving like that? We're going to talk about those transferable skills that the students they already have them, right? So it's already part of building their professional skill set. How do you even begin? What's your day look like?
Well, at Halifax Transit, we've got a big group of mechanics and body mechanics. But to use your example, if there's a bus broken down on the road, it can be a multitude of problems. A really common one now, because the trade is kind of electrically driven, even though it's diesel engines. These engines could have 40 plus sensors on them. So if an engine light comes on and the bus breaks down, we're going to go in, we're going to kind of try and isolate that problem as much as we can to a certain area. So we're going to use the tools we have, like computer software, and then kind of go through the steps of breaking it out. So the day-to-day is you're handed out the job from your supervisor. Depending on what component of the bus that is, you're going to start to try and problem solve on what got it there, what created the problem, how much damage that problem did, and how to fix it. And then alongside of that is you got to make a choice. Sometimes, you know, there's more than one path of repair, and some paths are very expensive, others aren't. Some paths you got to look at safety too. So like sometimes the quickest and cheapest fix is not an option because it's unsafe. So you got a lot to think about. Where everyone's sitting watching now, you're building those skills and you'll use them.
That's great. Brett, I'll hand it over to you. What questions do you have for Alex?
Yeah. So, like, what do you enjoy most about like your job and what you do? Like, we talked a little bit about your day to day, but like, what gets you excited for your job and for work every day?
For me, it's the fix. So I like when something comes in. I'm kind of off the floor a bit now as the superintendent at Transit, but when I was making the repairs, um, I like the engine light side of it because it's a puzzle. But for me, I like the fix. I like kind of solving the problem, trying to find out what's wrong, and then when you make the repair, you just took something that wasn't working at all, and now it's fixed, and you did that yourself. I find it really, really rewarding to take a big vehicle that's broken down on the side of the road, and then you get it moving again.
There must be a great sense of accomplishment when it comes with that. We also have a first question that came into the chat from one of the classrooms. What is the expected salary for a heavy duty truck and transport operator?
Yeah, that varies. That it'll vary from the level you are in your apprenticeship to your red seal, and then what kind of training you have on top of the red seal. So I mentioned you can get engine specific like Cummins or Allison transmissions or whatever. All those extra little things can help you get a pay boost. But it'll vary from anywhere at the bottom end closer to $25 an hour up to 45 right now in Nova Scotia. So the high end is, I mean, that's a good wage. You can make a really good living. Like Charlie said, when I started in this, I dropped out of kind of mechanics and moved towards university and I have a business background as well because I made that shift, ultimately didn't like it and got back into trades. And there's nothing wrong with university. I'm not saying that. But there was a drive that was kind of what you were supposed to do, and trades were a backup. And like Charlie said, if you're more interested in trades, it's not just a backup. There's a lot of successful career paths in trades, and this one is one of them. Like my path was a little bit different. Not every path is a straight line, so you'll get there. I ended up in the trade as a mechanic on night shift at Transit, up into as a foreman, and now the superintendent in Burnside. So you're not just limited to being a mechanic as well. If you put the work in, there's a lot of opportunity up there.
Thanks, Alex. That's brilliant too. And whenever we have, the opportunity to talk to mentors, nobody has a straight path, right? And that's a beautiful thing, just that you keep all those career options open. And Charlie keeps saying, the world is yours, but as long as you're making positive choices and going forward, it's incredible how you can change career, but that all of those things are added value to your future, right? Can you talk a little bit about, because you brought this up, and I think sometimes there's sort of this myth of the mechanic is like under the car with a wrench. And can you talk a little bit about, you said about how it's all sensor driven and how technology has changed the trade and how it continues to change in that sense?
Absolutely. So there is the wrench side of things still. That won't change where there are a lot of big components. But even since I got into this trade, the electronic side of it is huge. So you're diagnosing with laptops, you're diagnosing with software. So like young people today have such an advantage where the computer software, it's nothing to them. Like it's so common. So it being sensor driven, you could have a day where you don't, like, you're making the repair all with the computer. You've got programming issues inside the buses or the truck's computer that you can fix with your software. That was my favorite part of it. I like turning wrenches too, but it's pretty cool to see the inner workings. A lot of trucks and buses, like now, they look like big clunky vehicles, but they're a lot smarter than people think. Our buses, some of them have up to 50 onboard computers on them, and that all talk to each other simultaneously. So they read inputs and create outputs. So if for example, if I turn the switch to open the doors because the doors are air activated, they say, Alex, their dummy behind the wheel there wants to open the doors. It takes an input into one computer, and then 40 feet at the back of the bus, the other computer says, oh, I got that input, and they make the output. So if there's a programming problem between the two or a communication problem between the two, you're going to see that with the computer. If you know what you're looking at, they call it the ladder logic, because they need to see each rung of the ladder to make the output. And if you understand that, then your day might not just be laying under the bus or the truck with a wrench. Your day could be kind of problem solving on software, and the industry's moving that way even more and more and more. So it's really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you spoke to like the youth and the younger generation and their ability to have that. They just have that natural digital literacy, right? Like that's a skill that they already have to bring into the workplace. That's amazing. Brett, what questions do you have? And then we're going to open it up to the teachers and the students.
Yeah, of course. My last question would be if you have like any advice for any of the students who are listening here today, what would you give them?
My advice for listening: if you're interested in the trade, don't. Heavy duty gets a bad rap because it's big stuff. I'm not going to be able to do that. I can't. The parts are too big. If you're interested in it, go for it. Give it a shot. Like I said, the path isn't a straight line. If you don't like it in the end, that's fine. My path did circles. I moved backwards at times, so it's okay. There's tooling out there, you're not expected to lift parts and put parts on that weigh as much as you do. Anyone can do it if they put their mind to it. So if you have interest in it, take a shot.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex, for your time and answering the questions. I definitely felt like I've learned a lot about you and in an area and an industry that I felt like I didn't know as much about. If anybody has any questions that they want to put in the chat, we'd be happy to ask them out loud for Alex.
Rebecca Whedon's class has a question. What is the most important skill you would need for this career?
I'd say, I guess, critical thinking or problem solving. That's the majority of your day. Is, like I said, you're taking something broken, you're figuring out why it's broken, and then you're making the fix. So that I'd give that. But alongside of that, that's kind of the basis of it. But that computer knowledge is, like we talked about, is huge. The industry's going there, and where everything's going to be electrically driven, math is going to be big because electricity, there's a lot of math involved there. Charlie could attest to. But yeah, I would say the biggest skill. The rest you're going to use alongside of it, but it's critical thinking.
Thanks, Alex. I have another question, actually. Can you speak a little bit about the demand? And I know skilled trades across the country, the huge demand, but just what you see day to day in your work environment.
For heavy duty truck and transport mechanics, it's huge. There's not enough of us in the province. Because this trade transfers hand in hand to the oil field. When the oil field booms, they're all out. That's where I was for years. But even across the country right now, talking to other transit depots and just friends that I know in the trade across the country, there's an outcry for heavy duty truck and transport mechanics. The wages in Nova Scotia just increased a little bit. So to try and entice people to come in and start this trade. And like Charlie mentioned too, there's there was a gap between when a generation that was heavily trade oriented and then university oriented. So we got a lot of people retiring, and not as many people have filled the shoes. So there's a big outcry for mechanics in this trade.
That's great. And we do have a question from Catherine Creaser's class. What are some of the challenges in your job?
All right, so it's messy. You're gonna get dirty, really dirty. You gotta although and alongside of that said that there's tooling to lift everything, but it's a physical job. If you're on the computer-based side, then that's great. But there are days where it's physically demanding. Not that anybody can do this trade. We have lots. We've got men and women of all shapes and sizes in our shop, in between Halifax Transit, Dartmouth, and Halifax locations, and everybody can do this trade. But you're kind of going all day. It can be very tiring. So you got to be able to kind of overcome that.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. We're going to let you go. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for your time today. That was super. I appreciate you taking the time to be here and share that with the students. Oh, I'm going to throw one more question at you because it takes a minute for the students to get it translated through the teacher onto the chat.
Yep.
Where is this career most in demand? Is it local to Nova Scotia, or is this a national demand?
Right now, I can't speak for every province, but I know people in the trade here in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, BC, and Alberta that are all, there's shops across the country looking for mechanics. There's a big demand in Nova Scotia, but it's not just here. It's across the country.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. Okay, this time I'm really going to let you go.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was my pleasure to be here. I think this is a great event. Thank you very much.
Super. Take care.
Cheers.